Good morning, all of you. Once again, welcome back to the online sessions of Samagra Shiksha. This is Bhargavi, visit your chemistry in KTP Vendor from Kalka district. Now, in this section, I am going to explain you about the calculations involving unit cell and also about the defects and the magnetic properties. Now, if we come by using the dimensions of the cubic, we can calculate the volume of a cube. And also by using the density, we can calculate the mass of the atom which are present in a unit cell. Now, for example, determination of the mass of a single atom, it can give us an accurate method of determination of Avogadro's constant. What is this Avogadro's constant? So, 1 mole of every substance will have 6.023 into 10 to the power 23 atoms. This is nothing but Avogadro's substance. So, by using this, we can find out the single mass of a single atom. And if we take, by using X-ray diffraction, if we calculate this side length, edge length of a cube as A, then the volume of a unit cell will be A cube. The side of a cube is A, then the volume will be A cube. Mass of the unit cell is equal to number of atoms in unit cell into mass of each atom. So number of atoms in unit cell, it gives us Z, and mass of each atom is nothing but R. Okay. Now mass of an atom present in unit cell is M is equal to capital M by Na. Na means nothing but Avogadro number here, and capital M means nothing but molecular mass of that particular substance. Now, based on the density of the metal, generally we know that density means nothing but mass per unit volume. Here the density of the unit cell is nothing but mass of unit cell divided by volume of the unit cell. So now, mass of the unit cell, how much we got here? Zm by volume of the unit cell is A cube. So M means again Zm by A cube. M means M by Na. I substituted that here. That is equal to Z into M by Na by A cube. So what we can write it? Zm by A cube into Na. From this, if you want to calculate D is equal to Zm by A cube Na. Zm by A cube Na. So these are the 5. That here D means density. Okay. Z means number of atoms in unit cell, and M means capital M means molecular mass. A means A cube means nothing but volume of the cube, and Na means nothing but Avogadro's number. If we know the 4 quantities, we can calculate the 5th quantity. If we know density, that M, A, then we can find out A. If we know Na, M, Z, D, we can find out A cube. So like that, if we know any 4 quantities among the 5, we can calculate the 5th one. Let me explain you with the help of some problems. Now here they gave us a problem, see. Now see this, an element has a BCC structure means nothing but body centered cubic structure with cell edge of 288 picometers. Cell edge means nothing but side A they gave us. The density of the metal D is 7.2 gram per centimeter cube. How many atoms are present in 280 grams of the elements they gave us? Now volume of the unit cell. So as they gave us edge length, we can calculate the volume as A cube. So 288 they gave us. So 288 picometers. 1 picometer is equal to 10 to the power of minus 12 cube. Minus 12. So if we convert that meters into centimeters, minus 12 become minus 10 meters. So if we do that, 2.39 into 10 to the power of minus 23 centimeter cube we can get. Now, volume of 208 grams of the element. So, volume we have to find out. So, mass by density. Generally, density means mass per volume, correct? So from this volume is nothing but mass by density. So mass they gave us 208 grams divided by 7.2. Sorry, 208 grams of the element. It's not 280. 208 grams of the element. So 208 by 7.2. As they gave us density is 7.2, mass as 209. 208 divided by 7.2. If we calculate it, we can get volume as 28.88 centimeter cube. Now number of unit cells in this volume. So 28.88 by volume of the unit cell 2.39 into 10 to the power of minus 23. To do that, we can get 12.08. This 10 to the power of 3, if it comes upside, 10 to the power of 23. Minus 23 become plus 23. Next, each BCC has 2 atoms. So each body centered cubic lattice has 2 units. Already we discussed in our previous sections. So total number of atoms in 208 grams is equal to 2 into 12.08 into 10 to the power of 23, that is equal to 24.16 into 10 to the power of 23 atoms will be present in the 208 grams of the element. As it is a number of atoms, we don't have any units, atoms per unit, so we can mention. Okay. So like this, we have some other problems also. Just you can go through them. You can understand it easily. Now discuss about the imperfections in solids. So imperfections means nothing but the defects. So even though the crystalline solid, as they have short range and as well as long range order, that means some of the solids have short range order in their arrangement of constituent particles, and some of the solids have long range order in the arrangement of that constituent particles. Even though they have that ranges, but those crystals are not perfect. So generally, if we take any solid, it consists of an aggregate of large number of small crystals. So those small crystals have the effects in them. So why? What is the reason for the effects means? So what is the reason for the defect means? The defects in the crystalline solids occurs due to the crystallization process, the speed of the crystallization process. As it occurs fast or slow, based on that they'll have the defects. So if the reaction occurs at fast or moderate rate, then what happens? We can get a solid which consists of an aggregate of small number of particles. So, and if the reaction occurs at a very fast rate, then what happens? We can get the single. If it occurs slow rate, we can get the single crystals. If it occurs at a fast or moderate rate, then we can get an aggregate of large number of small crystals. So those either single crystals or aggregate of small crystals, both are not free of defects. So what is meant by defect? Generally, defect means nothing but the basic irregularities in the arrangement of constituent particles. Irregularities in the arrangement of constituent particles is nothing but what we can say defects. So generally we have 2 types of defects. Those are point defects as well as line defects. Point defects are nothing but the defects or irregularities or deviations from ideal arrangement around a point or an atom in the crystal lattice. If we take a particular crystalline substance, in that crystalline substance, if the deviation or irregularity occur at a single point or single atom, then we can call such defects as point defects. Line defects means nothing but those are irregularities or deviations from ideal arrangement in some rows of lattice points. So these irregularities are called crystal defects. What we can call them? Crystal defects. Either they may be point defects or line defects. We can call them as crystal defects. Now point defects can be classified into 3 types. AVV point defects are classified into 3 types. Those are nothing but stoichiometric defects, impurity defects and non-stoichiometric defects. Point defects are classified into 3 types: stoichiometric defects, impurity defects and non-stoichiometric defects. Stoichiometric defects are again classified into two types. Those are nothing but vacancy defect and interstitial defect. So generally stoichiometric defects means nothing but which do not disturb the stoichiometry of the solid. So stoichiometry defects means nothing but the defects which do not disturb the stoichiometry of the solid. Those are called as stoichiometric defects. We can also call them as either intrinsic or thermodynamic defects. So these are of generally two types, vacancy defect and interstitial defect. So what are those two types of point defects? Vacancy defect and interstitial defect. So what is meant by vacancy defect? The name itself indicating that vacancy. There should be a vacancy. Now for example, if we take, this is a crystalline arrangement. So see here, see there is a vacancy. That means in the crystal lattice some constituent particles should be missed. When some of the lattice sites are vacant, then the crystal is called as it is having vacancy defect. See now, here there should be a crystal, SO0, but practically here there is a vacant site. So due to the absence of the crystals or due to the existence of vacant sites, we can call them as vacancy. Then that particular solids can exhibit vacancy defect. Next, see one more vacancy defect. We can see here also. See, there should be a constituent particles. Here also, there should be a constituent particle. If we see now, see here, these are called vacant sites, SO0. So this type of defect is called as vacancy defect. So vacancy defect means nothing but the defect which arises due to the vacancy, due to the existence of vacancy in the crystal lattice. Next, interstitial defect. When some constituent particles occupy the interstitial site. Next, what is a interstitial defect? Now see here, if we see, these are the constituent particles. Actually this is the arrangement of general arrangement of constituent particles. But in this general arrangement, what happened? If we observe, see now, here these blue color particles which are there, they are in the interstitial sites. SO0, they are displaced from their positions and they occupy the interstitial sites. Such a defect is called as interstitial defect. What we can call such defect? Interstitial defect. So interstitial defect generally increases the density of the substance, whereas vacancy defect decreases the density of the substance. So why vacancy defect decreases the density means, now see here, if we take in case of vacancy defect, the number of particles decreases as due to the existence of vacancies, the number of particles decreases. So as the number of particles decreases, the mass per unit volume decreases. Density means nothing but mass per unit volume, no? So mass per unit volume decreases. As the mass decreases, density also decreases. So in the vacancy defect, the number of particles decreases due to the existence of vacant sites. But in the case of this interstitial defect, as the molecules attained along with their corner position, constituent positions, they will, along with the lattice point, they will occupy the interstitial positions also. So as the number of particles increases, what happens? Number of constituent particles increases, the mass per unit volume increases, that means the density increases. So these vacancy and interstitial defects both are explained by non-ionic solids. So those two are explained by non-ionic solids. So ionic solids, why ionic solids can't explain means ionic solids must maintain the electrical neutrality. So electrical neutrality means nothing but the positive ionic charge, ionic solids means nothing but, so the solids in which the bond is formed due to the transfer of electrons from one atom to another atom. That means one should lose the electrons to form the positively charged ions and the other one should gain the electrons to form the negatively charged ions. That positive and negative particles, the forces which occurs at that positive and the negatively charged ions, the electrostatic forces of attraction which holds the positive and negatively charged ions is nothing but ionic bond, no? So in the ionic bond, means in ionic solids, what happened? Positive and negative charges will be present. So ionic solids should maintain the electrical neutrality. That means they should have both equal positive and negative charges, then only they will become electrically neutral. So to maintain the electrical neutrality, ionic solids want to show vacancy or interstitial defects. They will show those defects in the name of Frenkel and Schottky defects. Frenkel and Schottky defects. So what is this Frenkel defect and Schottky defect means? Now see, Frenkel defect means nothing but the smaller ion, generally it is dislocated from its non-null side to an interstitial side. Actually see here, now A plus, it should be here, but what happened? From this place to, it is dislocated to this place. So any ion, but generally the smaller ion means usually cation will be smaller in the size. So when it is dislocated from its normal side to interstitial side, it creates a vacancy defect at its original position. Yes or not? Now see here when it displaces from this place to this place, here a vacancy position occurs. So here it causes a vacancy defect at its original position and interstitial defect at its new location. So already I told you vacancy defect means the defect which occurs due to the vacancy. So actually this is the original position of A plus, but when it moves, it dislocated from this place to this place. What happened here? So here this a vacancy occurred, that means a vacancy defect will occur. But when it moves from here to here, A plus, so when it moves from this place to interstitial side, interstitial defect also occur. So Frenkel defect is also called as dislocation point defect. What we can call it? Dislocation, as it occurs due to the dislocation of the particle. We can call this as dislocation point defect. See here, the number of particles per unit volume will be same, just it is dislocated from its original position to the interstitial side, so the density of the solid will not be changed. Frenkel defect, generally it is showed by, already I told you, generally ionic solids can show these Frenkel and Schottky defects. So best examples are zinc sulfide, silver chloride, AgBr and AgI. So these are the best effects of those. What are the best examples? Zinc sulfide, ZNS. Zinc sulfide, we can see these examples in our textbook also. Zinc sulfide, silver chloride, silver bromide and silver iodide. So generally they will exhibit these Frenkel defects. Next, see, this is also best example for Frenkel defects. Silver chloride, general structure disease, and silver chloride with the Frenkel defect. Means now see here, actually this position should be here, but what happened practically, it moves here. That means here a vacancy position is created and here interstitial defect occurs. So such type of defect is called as Frenkel defect. Here also, here a vacancy position occurs. Actually this is the position of this cation, but it dislocated from this position to this position. So here it is a hole, I mean a positive charge occur, but here vacancy defect, vacant site occurs, so it's a vacant position, and here interstitial defect occurs. Next, Schottky defect. So Schottky defect is generally a vacancy defect which occurs in ionic solids. So it is a vacancy defect which occurs in ionic solids. So best example I will take this now. See here. So generally to maintain the electrical neutrality, here vacancy defect means what? Both cations and anions will be missed from their places. Vacant sites will occur. So it occurs to maintain the electrical neutrality, the number of missing cations and anions will be same. If we take the simple vacancy defect, Schottky defect decreases the density of the substance. Why it decreases the density means, now see here, in the case of cations and anions, both will be mixed to place the vacant sites. So as the vacant sites are formed here, what will happen? As the number of particles, as vacant sites are formed, number of vacant particles will be decreased. Now see here, if we take this, here it is called cation vacancy and anion vacancy. That means both cations and anions displaced from their places. See, now here it displaced from its place and here it displaced from its place, dislocated. So here, as it moved, a vacant site is occurred. Here also vacant site is occurred. So Schottky defect is generally called as a vacancy defect. And also here one cation is displaced and here one anion is missed. That means number of cations, missing number of cations is equal to number of anions also. Why the same number of cations and anions are missed means the same to maintain the electrical neutrality, same number of cations and anions will be missed. So as the number of ions, both cation and anion are missed, what happened? Number of ions per unit volume decreases. As the number of ions per unit volume decreases, the density of the substance also decreases. So the number of such defects in the ionic solids are quite significant. For example, each point in a lattice is called as lattice point or lattice site. Already we know that. For example, if we take NaCl, in NaCl there are approximately 10 to the power of 6 Schottky pairs per centimeter cube at room temperature. If we take 1 centimeter cube of volume, in that 1 centimeter cube of volume, 10 to the power of 6 Schottky defects will be present. So, in 1 centimeter cube means how many atoms will present? There are nearly 10 to the power of 22 ions will be present. So there is one Schottky defect per 10 to the power of 16 ions. Generally, it is showed by the ionic substances in which cation and anion are almost similar sizes. So if we take Frankel defect, the cation should be smaller and the anion should be bigger. That means there should be the difference in the sizes of the ions in the case of Frankel defect. But if we come to the case of Schottky defect, it occurs in which the cations and anions are of almost same sizes. Best example, sodium chloride, potassium chloride, cesium chloride and silver bromide, they will exhibit these type of Schottky defect. So if we take silver bromide, the silver bromide, it can show both Schottky defect as well as Frankel defect. If we take silver bromide, already I told you the examples. While saying the examples of Frankel defect, I told you that silver bromide. In the same manner, while saying the examples of Schottky defect also, I told silver bromide. So here, silver bromide, it exhibits both Schottky defect as well as Frankel defect. So these are the stoichiometric defects. Stoichiometric defects means nothing but the defects which won't disturb the stoichiometry of the solid. They are also called as either intrinsic or thermodynamic defects. So those are classified into two types: vacancy defect, and interstitial defects, which are exhibited by non-ionic solids. Frankel and Schottky defects, which are exhibited by ionic solids. Next, impurity defects. The second type of defects are called as impurity defects. So impurity defects are nothing but the defects which are caused by the impurities. Means, for example, if we take molten sodium chloride, it consists of little amount of strontium chloride. Because that means when in the process of crystallization, along with sodium chloride, some amount of strontium chloride also will be mixed. That means some of the sites of sodium plus are occupied by Sr plus 2. See now here, some of the sites of sodium. Now see here, this here what should be present actually? Na plus should be present. Here also Na plus should be present. So when this strontium chloride is added, some of the sites of Na plus ions, these are occupied by Sr plus 2. For example, if we take Sr plus 2, sodium plus 1. So what happened? Each Sr plus 2 occupies the site of one ion and the remaining Na plus will be, to maintain the electrical neutrality, here plus 2 means one should be vacant. One should be vacant. Here plus 2, but sodium is plus 1 only, no? So each Sr plus 2 has a capacity to displace 2 Na plus ions. So one of the site of Na plus will be occupied by Sr plus 2, but the remaining will be vacant itself. The cationic vacancies which are produced are equal in number to that of Sr plus 2 ions. Sr not, now see here how many Sr plus 2 ions are there? 1 ion. So how many cationic vacancies are also there? 1 cation vacancy. In the same manner, solid solution of cadmium chloride and zinc silver chloride also can exhibit the same type of effect. See here, Cd plus 2, it can take 2 positions. Cd plus 2 occupy the Cd plus 2, it occupies the place of 2 Ag plus ions. One will be occupied and the other will be vacant. So this is called as impurity defects. So impurity defects are nothing but the defects which are caused by the impurities during crystallization process. Next, non-stoichiometric defects. So up to now we discussed the defects which do not disturb the stoichiometry. But if we take the large number of non-stoichiometric inorganic solids which contain the constituent elements in non-stoichiometric ratio, they also have defects in their crystal structures. Those defects are of 2 types. What are those 2 means? Metal excess defects and metal deficient defects. So metal excess defects, the name itself indicating that excess amount of metal will be present. If we take generally the alkali halides like sodium chloride and potassium chloride, they will exhibit this type of metal excess defect. For example, if we take sodium chloride crystals, when we heat them in the atmosphere of sodium vapor, then the sodium atoms are deposited on the surface of the crystal. Then the chloride ions diffuse to the surface of the crystal and combine with sodium atoms to give NaCl. This happens by the loss of electrons by sodium atoms to form Na plus ions. The released electrons diffuse into the crystal and occupy anionic sites. So due to that, the crystal now it has excess amount of sodium. Now see here, consider A plus means nothing but sodium and B minus means nothing but chloride ion. If we take, see here, this is the regular crystal of 1. A plus means consider here Na plus and B plus means consider that, B minus means consider Cl minus. Now if we take in this, so when these Na plus ions, when they form, the released electrons, the last electrons, they will occupy the anionic position. Now actually here what should be present? B minus should be present, but here what came? Electron. So such anionic centers which are occupied by the unpaired electrons, the anionic sites which are occupied by the unpaired electrons are called as F centers. What we can call them? F centers. So F centers are nothing but the anionic sites occupied by the unpaired electrons are called as F centers. Very important definition. So these F centers impart yellow color to the crystals of sodium chloride. So why they will impart the color means the color, it occurs due to the excitation of these electrons when they absorb energy from the visible light falling in the crystals. Similarly, excess amount of lithium makes lithium chloride to pink and excess of potassium makes potassium chloride crystals to violet. So here in all these cases, see generally visible light will fall on the crystals. When visible light fall on the crystals, these electrons will excite. So due to the excitations of these electrons, we can get, they will impart, that excited electrons will impart a color to that particular crystals. This metal excess defect, it is due to the presence of extra cations at the interstitial sites. See now here, extra cation is there here. SO2. So due to the presence of these extra cations only, they will show this metal excess defect. When zinc oxide is white in color at room temperature, but on heating it loses its color, that means it turns to yellow, from white to yellow. So what will happen means there is excess of zinc in the crystal. If you take zinc oxide, actually that is Zn1 plus XO, that means excess of zinc will be present. The excess of zinc ions, when they move to interstitial sites, and the electrons to the neighboring interstitial sites. See here, this zinc, they move to the interstitial sites, and the electrons will be, these electrons will move to the anionic centers. In this defect, now see here, generally oxide will be present. That oxide will be converted into dioxygen. So this dioxygen, it oxidizes some of the interstitial ions. So and it subsequently remove the constituent electrons. As they remove the interstitial electrons, the conductivity of this particular solid will be decreased. This oxide will be converted into dioxygen. As it converted into dioxygen, that dioxygen, it oxidizes the interstitial electrons. So as it oxidizes some of the interstitial electrons, what will happen? The conductivity, as free electrons are not there, the conductivity of the particular crystal will decrease. This is about metal excess effect. So metal excess defect means nothing but it occurs due to the presence of extra cations in the interstitial sites. Next, metal deficiency defect. Metal deficiency defect. So many solids which are difficult to prepare in the stoichiometric composition, they contain less amount of the metal as compared to the stoichiometric proportion. Let me explain this with one example. For example, if we will take FeO, generally FeO, it is found with a composition of Fe0.950, but actually the range of Fe will be Fe0.930 to Fe0.960. That means actually it is available in the form of 0.95, but the actual range will be 0.93 to 0.96. So in this crystal of FeO, if we observe, some of the Fe plus 2 ions are missed. Now see here Fe plus 2, but here instead of Fe plus 2, Fe plus 3 is there. Again Fe plus 2, Fe plus 2, Fe plus 2, Fe plus 2, again Fe plus 3. So why these Fe plus 3 ions occurred means Fe plus 2 ions are missed, and the loss of positive charge, it is made up by the presence of required number of Fe plus 3. Here the amount of metal ions are less than the required. Actually here also Fe plus 2 should be present, but the amount of Fe plus 2 ions are less. So the loss of positive charge will be covered by these Fe plus 3 ions. So it occurs due to the presence of less number of metal ions. So this is about metal deficiency defects. So mainly these are the defects. Impurity defects we discussed, and non-stoichiometric. In non-stoichiometric defects are again classified into two types: metal excess defects and metal deficiency defects. Next, let me go for the electrical properties of the solids. Solids can be classified into three types based on their conductivities. Those are conductors, insulators and semiconductors. So what are those three? Conductors, insulators and semiconductors. Conductors means nothing but the solids whose conductivity is ranging between from 10 to the power of 4 to 10 to the power of 7 ohm inverse meter inverse. So generally if the conductivity range is 10 to the power of 4 to 10 to the power of 7 ohm inverse meter inverse, then we can call them as conductors. Generally the conductivity of metals will be 10 to the power of 7 ohm inverse meter inverse. So those metals are called as good conductors. Insulators. Insulators means nothing but insulators, already we know in our lower classes we got these terms: conductors, insulators and semiconductors. Conductors means which can allow the electricity to pass through itself in higher amounts. Insulators means which won't allow the heat or electricity to pass through them. Semiconductors means which can allow partial amount of heat or electricity to flow through them. Those are called as semiconductors. But here in this session, we are defining the conductors based on the range of conductivity. For metals or for conductors, the conductivity range will be 10 to the power of 4 to 10 to the power of 7 ohm inverse meter inverse. For insulators, it will be 10 to the power of minus 20 to 10 to the power of minus 10 ohm inverse meter inverse. And for semiconductors, it will be 10 to the power of minus 6 to 10 to the power of 4 ohm inverse meter inverse. So here, based on the conductivity ranges, for metals, the conductivity range will be high. For insulators, it will be very low. And for semiconductors, it will be medium. So now, how the electricity will conduct by the metals. See, if you take generally, conductor means what? It may conduct electricity through the movement of either electrons or ions. If we take the metallic conductors, they have free electrons. Metals conduct electricity both in solid as well as in molten state. So what is the reason means? Already we know that metals are electron rich. As the metals are electron rich, due to the existence of free electrons, they will easily pass the electricity through them. So electricity means nothing but passage of movement of electrons or ions. So here in the case of metals, as they have free electrons both in their solid as well as in molten state, in both solid and molten state they will act as a good conductors of electricity. Now here we are explaining this phenomena based on two types of bands, valency band and conduction band. So let me explain what is meant by valency band and conduction band first. The atomic orbitals of metal atoms, they form molecular orbitals which are so close in energy to each other. So to form a band which is called as valency band. And if this band is partially filled or it overlaps with a higher energy unoccupied band, it is called as conduction band. So then actually the electrons should move from valency band to conduction band. How they'll move? See, in case of semiconductors, if we take the gap between the valency band and conduction band is small. See, you can observe in the figure. The energy gap between valency band and the conduction band is very less. And in the case of insulators, the gap between this conduction band and valency band is more. Now see here, this is called as forbidden energy gap. What we can call it? Forbidden energy gap. So in case of insulators, the forbidden energy gap is more, whereas in case of semiconductors, the forbidden energy gap is less. And if we take in case of metals, that means in case of conductors, see the overlap with each other, that means the forbidden energy gap is very less. In the metals, as both bands are overlapped with each other, more number of electrons will move from valency band to conduction band, so electricity will be moved in higher amounts, so the electrical conductivity will be larger. In case of semiconductors, if we take, as there is a small energy gap between this valency band and conduction band, what will happen? Less number of electrons. When compared with insulators, more number of electrons will jump from valency band to conduction band, so they'll pass less amount of electricity. But when we increase the temperature, what happened? Some more number of electrons will jump from valency band to conduction band. So as we increase the temperature, the electrical conductivity of the semiconductors will increase. Generally, the substances like silicon and germanium, they will show the semiconductor property and they are called as intrinsic semiconductors. The conductivity of these intrinsic semiconductors is very low. So what should we do to use practically? The conductivity is very low. So to increase their conductivity, we'll add the impurities. By adding the impurities, we can increase the conductivity of these semiconductors. That process is called as doping. So it can be done by adding an electron deficient compound or an electron rich compound to the semiconductors. So again, when we add them, they will produce as the electron defects in that particular crystals. Due to that, what happened? The conductivity will increase. So what are electron rich impurities and electron deficient impurities? Silicon and germanium, they belong to group 14. Means they'll have 4 valency electrons. So they'll form 4 types of bonds, 4 covalent bonds with each metal. Now see here, if you take silicon, you can form a bond with this and one more with this. See, each and every silicon formed 4 covalent bonds. So when we dope them with the 15 group elements like phosphorus, arsenic or antimony, what will happen? That also can form 4. So 15th group means it will have 5 valence electrons in their valency shell. So among the 5, 4 electrons will be used to form bonds with the 4 silicon atoms, and the 5th electron will be free. As this 5th electron will be free, it will be delocalized. So the movement of delocalized electrons means nothing but electricity. So due to the presence of these delocalized electrons, the conductivity of that doped silicon or germanium will increase. So the increase in conductivity is due to the negatively charged electrons. So we can call these type of conductors as N-type semiconductors. So if we take silicon or germanium, that belong to 14th group elements, means they'll have 4 electrons in their valency shell. They'll form 4 covalent bonds. But when we dope them with the 15th group elements like phosphorus, arsenic or antimony, which have 5 valence electrons, among the 5, 4 are used to form bonds with the 4 silicon atoms, but the 5th electron will be free electron and it will be delocalized. It won't be fixed to a particular position. So as the presence of these delocalized electrons, the conductivity of that semiconductor will increase. As the conductivity is increased due to the presence of negatively charged electrons. In negatively charged electrons, they are taking N. N means negative. N indicates negatively charged electrons. Here, in this type of semiconductors, when we dope them with the 15th group elements, the conductivity increases due to the presence of delocalized free electrons. As their charge is negative, we can call them as N-type semiconductors. Instead of 15th group elements, if we dope them with the 13th group elements like boron, aluminum or gallium, then what happened? Here 13th group elements means they will have only 3 electrons in their valency shell. Now if we take this boron, it will have only 3 electrons in their valency shell. Already all of us know about electronic configuration, so I am not explaining it again. So now see here, if we take this boron, as it have only 3 electrons, it can form only 3 bonds, but the 4th one will be empty. Yes or not? Here the 4th electron, it can't form a bond here. So then what happened? It creates an electron hole or electron vacancy, which we can also call as void. So here, as this electron hole is formed, then how the conductivity will increase? See here, when an electron hole is formed, an electron from the neighboring atom, it can come and fill the electron hole. Now it can come, this electron, it come and fill the electron hole. Again what happened? Here an electron hole is moved. So it would appear if the electron hole has moved in the direction opposite to that of the electron, here electron hole is there. This electron came and see now here electron hole is there. Now what is happening? This electron it came here and it covers that electron hole. Then what happened? Here again a hole will be formed here. A hole will be formed here. See now Here the formation of hole is opposite to the movement of electron, because the electron is moving in this direction but the hole is moving in this direction. As the electron is moving to fill the hole, what happened when we apply an electric field? The electrons would move towards the positively charged plate through the electronic holes. Then what happened? The movement of free electrons will occur due to the presence of positively charged holes there. So, as the conductivity increases due to the presence of positively charged holes, we can call this type of conductors are p-type conductors. So, n-type means in n-type semiconductors, the conductivity increases due to the presence of free delocalized negatively charged electrons here, but in the case of p-type semiconductors, the conductivity increases due to the presence of positively charged electron holes. So p-type means the conductivity increases due to the positive charge. N-type means the conductivity increases due to the negatively charged electrons. So this is about doping. So when we dope them with the 15th group elements, we can get n-type semiconductors. When we dope them with 13th group elements, we can get p-type semiconductors. So where we'll use these n-type and p-type semiconductors? Mainly diode. It is a combination of both n-type and p-type semiconductor, and it is used as a rectifier also. The transistors, they are made by NPN and PNP transistors. So how can we prepare a sandwich? First top and bottom will be same layers, in the middle will be different layer. In the same manner, NPN or PNP transistors will be used to detect or amplify radio or audio signals. The solar cell, it is an efficient photodiode which is used for conversion of light energy into electrical energy. So these are some of the uses of semiconductors. Next, we are going for the magnetic properties of the magnetic properties of the substance. Take each and every substance, it has a magnetic property. The origin of the magnetic property, it lies in the electrons, because each and every electron in an atom, it behaves like a tiny magnet. Its magnetic moment arises from two types of motions. What are those two types? Its orbital motion around the nucleus and also its spin around its own axis. The electron being a charged particle and undergoing these type of motions, it can be considered as a small loop of current which possesses a magnetic moment. So each electron which has a permanent spin and an orbital magnetic moment associated with it. Magnitude of this magnetic moment is very small and is measured in the unit called Bohr magneton. So the Bohr magneton value is equal to 9.27 into 10 to the power of minus 24 ampere meter square. If we observe here, the electron, it is moving around the nucleus. Here in this case, the electron is moving on its around itself, means it have both magnetic, it is moving around the two axes along its nucleus as well as around itself. So due to these motions, it will get the magnetic properties. So on the basis of their magnetic properties, the substances, we can classify them into 5 types. Those are paramagnetic, diamagnetic, ferromagnetic, antiferromagnetic and ferrimagnetic substances. So what is meant by paramagnetic substances? Paramagnetic substances are nothing but the substances which are weakly attracted by a magnetic field. How they will be magnetized means they will be magnetized in magnetic field in the same direction. They are weakly attracted by the magnetic field and the alignment of the magnetization will be in the same direction of the magnetic field. They lost their magnetism in the absence of magnetic field. Paramagnetism is due to the presence of one or more unpaired electrons which are attracted by the magnetic field. If we take the substances which have unpaired electrons, they will show they'll exhibit the Which type of property? Paramagnetic property. Examples: oxygen, Cu plus 2, Fe plus 3, Cr plus 3. Almost all the substances which have the unpaired electrons, they are the best examples for this paramagnetic substances. Next, diamagnetic substances, they are weakly repelled by the magnetic field. Water, sodium chloride, benzene are some of the examples of diamagnetic substances. They are weakly magnetized, and the direction will be opposite to the direction of the applied magnetic field. But if you take in case of paramagnetism, they are weakly attracted and the direction is in the direction of applied magnetic field. But in the case of diamagnetic substances, the direction of magnetization is opposite to the applied field. So here the diamagnetism will show by the substances which have the paired electrons. Paramagnetism means they should have the unpaired electrons, but in the case of diamagnetic substances, they should have only paired electrons. Pairing of electrons, it cancels their magnetic moment, so they lost their magnetic character. So they are weakly attracted by the weakly repelled by the magnetic field as they lost their magnetic character. Next, ferromagnetism. Some of the substances like iron, cobalt, nickel, gadolinium and chromium oxide, they are attracted very strongly by the magnetic field. So which substances are attracted strongly by the magnetic field? Those substances are called as ferromagnetic substances. Besides strong attractions, these substances can be permanently magnetized. So if we take the metal ions of ferromagnetic substances, they are grouped together into smaller regions which we can call them as domains. Each domain acts as a tiny magnet. Now see here, alignment will be in the same direction. Alignment of that domain will be in the same direction in case of ferromagnetic substances. As the alignment is in the same direction, the net of the magnetic moment won't become zero. As it won't become zero when it is placed in the magnetic field, what happened? All the domains get oriented in the same direction. So the strong magnetic effect will be produced. So this alignment in the same direction, orientation in the same direction, it makes the ferromagnetic substance as a permanent magnet. Next, antiferro, opposite to that ferric substances. The substances like the manganese oxide, they'll show the antiferromagnetism, which have the domain structure similar to ferromagnetic substances, but the domains were oppositely oriented and cancel each other. It will cancel by this, and the orientation of this will be cancelled by this. The orientation of this domain is cancelled by this. So this is about antiferromagnetism. Next, ferrimagnetism. It is observed when the magnetic moments of the domains in the substance are aligned in parallel and anti-parallel directions. Now, if we see, they don't have a regular arrangement, regular orientation. See, these two are in opposite, and this is the orientation of this domain is opposite to these two. Here, these two are in one domain, one direction. This is in another direction. They are weakly attracted by the magnetic field when we compare with the ferromagnetic substances. The substances like magnetite and ferrites, they will exhibit this ferrimagnetism. On heating, they will become paramagnetic. So on heating, these ferrimagnetic substances become paramagnetic substances. So this is about the magnetic properties of the substances. So the substances are classified 5 types based on their magnetic properties: paramagnetic, diamagnetic, ferromagnetic and antiferromagnetic and ferrimagnetic. It's about all of those we discussed. I hope all of you can understand this total solid state chapter. Thank you all for giving this golden opportunity. Students, please utilize this opportunity which was given by our higher authorities to you. Thank you all. Have a nice day.